They are, but never were. Forevermore will we, but unremembered. They were a curse brought upon mankind, a blight shown to them by the ancient gods for the greed and violence they wrought. Those are the days that most white men now seek to see banished even from the history books. But I write this now, that we men may be forced to remember. He was called Cat Sparrow by white men. He had the heart of some of their most storied Aztec warriors. Black as the deepest oceans, and tortured more still by all the dying screams of the people that once called him a deity. Over 300 years ago, the civilization, known to us as the Aztecs, stood above all others. Peace was one at the tip of the sword, and their cities safe and powerful. This long before my birth. Then, we white men came to their land from ours, far across the seas. They thought us gods, beings of divinity and creatures prophesied of by their elders. Our weapons more powerful than theirs, and our numbers more vast than the sea sands. They showered us with gifts of gold and gems, and peace reigned. But during those years, we white men became increasingly greedy, and it became clear to them that we were not gods, but mere mortals like them. War came between us, and though our weapons were superior, their warriors fought strongly and banished us from their land for a short time. But we returned, with more men and with more power, and brought a bloody war that saw their cities and culture destroyed. For this, their priest called upon their gods, that a curse be brought upon the white man. The god of war, Tezcatlipoca, and his personal force of warriors answered this call, and came to earth, taking on the form of leopards that stood as men. Immortal and undying, they swore to hunt down and kill every last surviving relative of the men that destroyed the people that once loved them. My story begins nearly 250 years later. I am the 7th generation from the man known as Cortez. I had always been told of this curse upon my family line, as my father and grandfather died at sea, but I'd never put much faith in it. It was on the night of April the 4th that I heard the gunshots ring out across the bay. They were unlike any guns I had ever heard. The sound was more of a ferocious growl than anything. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end as I raced to get dressed and armed for battle. This day, my life was made forfeit. My name is Agrippa, and this is my day. I jumped from the bed and raced for the trunk that contained my weapons and armor. Before I could even get down the hallway, I saw a pair of cat-like eyes staring at me from within the darkness. A voice from within the shadows said,
"Surrender now, brother, and I shall not cut you down where you stand."
It was then that I realized that I was surrounded. I said, "What do you want of me?" The voice replied,
"Me? I want nothing of you, but the captain wishes to see you. Come, get dressed. Put on your finest clothes."
He stepped into the light, and I saw him in full. He was dressed in general sailor's clothing, but it was every bit like a leopard that stood upon 2 feet. I rose to my feet to try and meet him face to face. He grinned a toothy grin as I realized that he stood 2 heads taller than me. His stature was fearsome. He extended a paw to me and said,
"Come on then. The captain is waiting to see you."
I nodded, and he turned his back to me and said,
"Get dressed and come out when you're ready."
I hurriedly got dressed and walked out the door and saw him standing there on the beach. 5 others were with him, each standing taller than me by a head or so. They led me to a little boat, and we rowed out into the dark sea. I saw the ship by the light of the flames from the cannons as it bombarded the tower. It was huge, larger than any ship of the line. The one who had confronted me stood and held a paw in the air, and the bombardment stopped as we got closer to the ship. We pulled up to its side, and the sails unfurled as they signaled me to climb up. He took me to a cabin and said,
"Tomorrow you meet the captain. Now you must rest."
He closed the door and locked it behind him. Needless to say, I hardly slept at all that night. Early the next morning I awoke when the door was open and the morning light flooded in. The same leopard man stood there and said,
Good morning. I hope your sleep was restful. Come, the captain is waiting.
I followed behind him, not saying a word. He led me to the captain's quarters and closed the door behind him as he left. I saw him standing there for the first time, staring out the aft windows of the ship. He turned to me and grinned. It sent chills down my spine. He was dressed in a white linen shirt with a pair of faded red pants on. He wore a green sash about his waist and a bright red bandana adorned with all manner of beads and coins. He had a beard that he had split into two and braided, with the tips having a bead at each end. On top of all this, he wore a large, dark brown cloak and had a sword hanging from his hips that not even the mightiest human could wield. He said to me,
Sit down and eat. You must be hungry.
I shook my head and asked, If you are going to kill me, as is my lot, then be done with it. Enough of this toying around. He looked into my eyes and said,
Not yet, young one. Not yet. You are the last of them, and we finally found you. Your forefathers all set to sea, but you stayed inland. You are tricky to find, I'll admit. But we must end this properly, so that my people's pain, my pain, may be quenched, and at last our souls can rest in the warrior's paradise forevermore.
I said, What is properly? He replied,
You must be offered as an apology to my people, and be forgiven. Then we may rest from this eternal hunt. We will be at the sacred grounds by tomorrow this time. Know this, you will die, that the curse may finally be lifted. There is no escaping your fate.
I asked, Are you not the god Tezcatlipoca, come to earth that me and my line be extinguished and vengeance shall be won for your people? He said,
You're a bright one, and a historian no less. Come, sit with me and eat. I wish to hear more about you and your forefathers. Though I killed them, I never talked to one of them face to face. I am most interested in you and your family line, as you and your forefathers have been my most worthy prey.
I sat down cautiously and he sat across the table from me. The table was adorned with some of the finest dishes that I had heard of, all cooked by a master chef. I began to eat and he said,
I hope you like the wine. It is of the finest quality, taken from a galleon.
Around midday, the door opened and the same cat that had escorted me to the ship walked in. The captain said to him,
Quartermaster, take this man to my cabin. He shall sleep where the captain sleeps.
The quartermaster replied,
Captain, you should not be talking to a filthy white man. He is the man who killed our people. This is the man. Silence, quartermaster,
said the captain.
He will sleep where the captain sleeps for this night. Tomorrow he dies as a final sacrifice to atone for the atrocities committed by his people. But for tonight, he is my guest.
The quartermaster protested.
I'll not do it. I shall not see the enemy of our people sink to luxury.
Before the quartermaster could finish his sentence, the captain stabbed him through the chest. He said,
I could kill you for this, but just feel the pain for now, and know that what I say goes without question from now on, eh?
The quartermaster looked up at the captain and said,
Yes, sir. I will do as you say. Good,
said the captain. He pulled the blade from the quartermaster's chest, and the wound quickly closed up and healed, but left a ghastly scar in its place. The quartermaster stood up and took me by the arm and walked me up to the captain's sleeping quarters. I collapsed on the bed. The wine and what I had just seen were heavy on my head. I fell deep asleep in only a few minutes. I awoke the next day, realizing that the ship had stopped. The captain was there standing over me, with that same toothy grin. He said,
It's time to go. I hope your head is clear.
I replied, Clear enough. He escorted me to the small raft that less than 2 days ago had brought me aboard the ship. The quartermaster and the other cat that had brought me aboard were sitting in the boat, ready to hoist us down. The captain lifted me up with one arm and put me in the raft, and then jumped in himself, and we were lowered to the sea below. We rowed for a time, and soon we rounded a bend of some jagged rocks, and he spotted a lonely strip of white sandy beach. He said,
Quartermaster, there.
The quartermaster rowed us toward the beach, and soon we were standing on the warm white sand. As the other two stayed behind to stand with the boat, Cat Sparrow said to me,
Go ahead yourself and tell me what you see.
I nodded and walked a few paces ahead of the captain. He stopped and lifted a spyglass to his eye and surveyed the horizon as the quartermaster and the other crew member looked on.
We are in the right place.
He walked over to me and unsheathed his sword. Feeling it was my time, I closed my eyes. But he took hold of my hand and made a clean slice across the palm and let the blood flow onto the white sands. He looked at the horizon yet again and then touched my palm with his claw, running it along the cut and healing it like the quartermaster's wound had healed. I looked at the sands and they were clean and white, as if my blood had never been spilled. He said to me,
Your clean heart has allowed my people to forgive your race, but your life is required now to finish the rite.
He pulled a large roll of paper and feather quill from his cloak and said,
Write the events of the past few days here, that your people may know and never again forget. You will die well. Your blood will not be spilled. Enough is enough.
Father Cortez, we are forgiven.